the woman everyone feared. The mansion on Hillside Crest Drive stood like a silent king above the city. Glass walls, marble floors, and gates taller than most people's dreams. From the outside, it looked like success. From the inside, it felt like fear. Every worker inside that mansion walked carefully. Every step mattered. Every word mattered. Every breath mattered. Because Vanessa Cole was in the house. She was beautiful in the way magazines loved. Smooth caramel skin, long straight hair, designer clothes that hugged her body like power itself. She was engaged to Julian Monroe, a 32-year-old billionaire tech investor who had built an empire before most people finished college. Julian was calm, thoughtful, generous. Vanessa was not. "Did I tell you to look at me when I'm talking to you?" Vanessa snapped, her sharp heels clicking against the marble as she paced the kitchen. A young kitchen assistant named Renee froze, her hands shaking over the counter. I'm sorry, ma'am," Renee whispered. Vanessa scoffed. "Sorry doesn't clean plates. Sorry doesn't make food appear on time." She lifted her hand and slapped Renee so hard the sound echoed. Everyone in the kitchen froze. No one moved. No one spoke. Renee held her cheek, tears burning her eyes, but she said nothing. She couldn't. Complaining meant losing her job, or worse. "Take that trash outside," Vanessa ordered coldly. "And don't eat anything until dinner. I don't pay people to snack." Vanessa didn't pay anyone. Julian did. But Julian wasn't home. He traveled often. Meetings. Conferences. Deals. He trusted Vanessa to manage the house. And Vanessa ruled it like a tyrant. Workers were denied meals. Late workers were beaten or slapped. Anyone who talked back was fired on the spot. And when Julian called, Vanessa smiled sweetly into the phone. "They're all doing great, baby. You know how much they respect me." The workers learned one thing very quickly. Julian Monroe's mansion was not a home. It was a prison. The day Amara Johnson arrived, no one expected anything different. She walked through the gates quietly, dressed simply, black hair pulled back, brown skin glowing naturally, eyes sharp but calm. She was 26, with a quiet confidence that didn't beg for attention. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Thompson, looked her over carefully. "You know this house isn't easy," Mrs. Thompson warned gently. "The lady of the house, she's difficult." Amara nodded. "I understand." "You won't," Mrs. Thompson said softly. "Not yet." Amara was assigned to general duties, cleaning, organizing, assisting where needed. From the moment she stepped inside, she noticed the tension. No laughter. No music. Only whispers and flinching. At noon, when the staff usually ate, Amara noticed something strange. No one went to the dining area. "Where do we eat?" she asked another maid, Keisha. Keisha looked around nervously. "We don't. Not unless she allows it." "Who?" Amara asked. Keisha lowered her voice. "Vanessa." Amara frowned. "That's not right." Keisha almost laughed, but fear stopped her. "You must be new." That afternoon, Amara was wiping a hallway mirror when Vanessa appeared. She looked Amara up and down slowly. "You," Vanessa said. "Why are you standing like that?" "I'm cleaning, ma'am," Amara replied evenly. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "You don't answer me with that tone." Amara paused, then turned fully toward her. "This is my normal tone," she said calmly. The hallway went silent. Vanessa stepped closer. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes," Amara replied. "You're engaged to Mr. Monroe." Vanessa raised her hand. Everyone expected the slap, but Amara caught her wrist mid-air. Gasps filled the hallway. Vanessa's eyes widened in shock. "How dare you touch me?" Amara released her hand slowly. "Do not raise your hand at me again," Amara said, her voice steady but firm. "I'm here to work, not to be abused." Vanessa laughed, sharp and cruel. "You won't last 1 week." Amara met her eyes. We'll see. That night, the staff whispered in corners. Did you see what she did? She's crazy. She's brave. She's finished. Vanessa made sure Amara worked the longest hours. She assigned her extra chores, denied her meals, watched closely, waiting for her to break. But Amara didn't. Instead, she did something no one else had done. She spoke. When a gardener collapsed from hunger, Amara brought him food from her own bag. When a cleaner cried in the bathroom, Amara listened. They can't keep doing this, Amara told them quietly. This isn't legal. And it's not right. Keisha shook her head. Julian doesn't know. Then he needs to, Amara said. Days later, Julian returned early from a trip, unannounced. Vanessa didn't know. That morning, Vanessa stormed into the kitchen furious. Why is breakfast late? She screamed. A cook stammered. The supplies. Vanessa slapped him. That was when Amara stepped forward. Stop it! Amara shouted. Vanessa turned, shocked. Excuse me. You heard me, Amara said loudly. You don't own these people. You don't starve them. You don't beat them. Vanessa raised her hand again. But this time, what is going on here? Julian's voice thundered from the doorway. The room froze. Vanessa turned slowly. Julian, baby, she smiled nervously. I was just correcting them. Julian's eyes moved from the trembling staff to the red mark on the cook's face, to Amara standing tall. Correcting? He asked quietly. Amara met his gaze. You need to know who you're about to marry, she said. And in that moment, everything began to change. Silence fell over the kitchen like a heavy blanket. No one breathed. Julian Monroe stood still, his tailored suit suddenly out of place in a room filled with fear. His eyes were calm, but sharp, the kind of calm that came before a storm. Everyone, he said quietly, leave the room. The staff didn't move at first. Years of fear had trained them to wait for Vanessa's approval. Julian turned to them, firmer now. That was not a suggestion. One by one, they shuffled out, some limping, some wiping tears, some bowing their heads as if apologizing for existing. Only 3 people remained. Julian, Vanessa, and Amara. Vanessa crossed her arms quickly, forcing a laugh. You know how dramatic these people can be. They exaggerate everything. Julian didn't look at her. His eyes stayed on Amara. What's your name? He asked. Amara Johnson, she replied calmly. And what exactly happened here? Vanessa stepped forward sharply. Julian, don't let a maid. Julian raised his hand. Vanessa froze. It was the first time he had ever stopped her like that. I asked her, he said. Amara didn't rush her words. She didn't shout. She didn't insult. She simply told the truth. She slapped him because breakfast was late, Amara said. This isn't the first time. Workers here are beaten, starved, and humiliated daily. Some sleep hungry. Some hide injuries. Everyone is afraid. Vanessa laughed again, louder this time. You believe this nonsense? Julian finally turned to her. Did you slap him? He asked. Vanessa scoffed. Julian, please. You know me. That answer was enough. Julian walked toward the cook, who stood trembling by the door. Look at me, Julian said gently. The cook hesitated, then lifted his face. The red mark was unmistakable. Julian's jaw tightened. How long has this been happening? He asked quietly. The cook swallowed hard. Since she moved in, sir. Julian closed his eyes. Vanessa's smile faded. That evening, Julian canceled his meetings. For the first time, he stayed home. He walked through the mansion slowly, watching everything. He noticed how workers flinched when Vanessa's heels clicked. How eyes dropped when she entered a room. How voices softened to whispers. He called Mrs. Thompson into his office. She cried before he even spoke. I wanted to tell you, she sobbed. But she threatened to destroy our lives. She said no one would believe us. Julian sat back, guilt washing over him. I should have seen it, he whispered. That night, Vanessa confronted him in their bedroom. So now you're interrogating staff like criminals, she snapped. Over one disrespectful maid? Julian faced her calmly. It's not about one maid. Vanessa stepped closer. She embarrassed me. In my house. Our house, Julian corrected. And no one should be abused in it. Vanessa's face twisted. They're servants. That's their place. Julian stared at her like he was seeing a stranger. My parents were servants, he said slowly. And they raised me better than this. Vanessa laughed bitterly. You're choosing them over me? Julian didn't answer. That scared her. Later that night, Julian asked to speak to Amara privately. She stood in his study, hands folded, composed. I owe you an apology, Julian said. You should never have experienced that here. Amara nodded. Thank you. Why didn't you quit? He asked. Amara looked down for a moment. Because I've lived this before, she said softly. I grew up watching my mother clean houses where she was treated like dirt. I promised myself I'd never be silent again. Julian felt something tighten in his chest. You were brave, he said. No, Amara replied. I was tired. He smiled sadly. You may have saved a lot of people here. Amara met his eyes. Including you. The next morning, Julian did something Vanessa never expected. He gathered all staff in the living room. Vanessa stood beside him, arms crossed, furious. Julian spoke clearly. Any form of abuse ends today. Anyone who has been harmed will receive compensation. Anyone who feels unsafe may speak freely. Murmurs filled the room. Vanessa snapped. You're turning them against me. Julian turned to her slowly. No, he said. Your actions did that. He faced everyone again. And effective immediately, Vanessa no longer has authority over this household. Gasps echoed. Vanessa's face drained of color. You can't do this, she whispered. I'm your fiancée. Julian's voice was steady. I was going to marry the woman I thought you were. Silence. But I won't marry cruelty. Vanessa screamed. She threw a glass across the room. I made you look good, she shouted. Without me, you're nothing. Julian didn't flinch. Security, he said quietly. Vanessa was escorted upstairs to pack her things. The mansion breathed again for the first time in months. Days passed. Meals were served again. Laughter returned quietly. Music played softly in the halls. Amara continued her work, but something had changed. People smiled at her now. Respected her. Julian watched from a distance. He noticed how she spoke gently, how she corrected without cruelty, how she carried strength without pride. One afternoon, he stopped her in the hallway. Amara, he said. Yes, sir. Thank you, he said simply. She smiled. You did the right thing. He nodded. Because someone reminded me. Their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them. Not romance. Not yet. But respect. And respect, Julian would soon learn, was the foundation of everything he had been missing. Vanessa did not leave quietly. By morning, gossip had already begun to spread across the city's elite circles. Private group chats buzzed. Blogs whispered. Social media speculated. Billionaire dumps fiancé after Maid's lies? Julian Monroe controlled by house help? Vanessa sat in a luxury hotel suite, scrolling furiously, her nails tapping the screen like weapons. They chose her, she hissed. A nobody. Her friend Clarissa shook her head. You underestimated that Maid. Vanessa's eyes hardened. No. I underestimated him. She began to plan. Julian felt the pressure immediately. Board members questioned his judgment. Investors hinted at instability. His assistant brought him a tablet filled with headlines. "You okay?" she asked carefully. Julian nodded. Truth survives noise. But still, doubt crept in. That evening, Amara noticed the tension. "You don't look rested," she said quietly while organizing the study. Julian smiled faintly. "Storms don't last forever." Amara paused. "But they reveal foundations." He looked at her thoughtfully. Vanessa struck fast. One afternoon, a luxury bracelet went missing. Security footage was leaked, edited footage, showing Amara near the room. Police arrived. Gasps filled the mansion. Julian stared at the screen. "This footage is incomplete." Vanessa smirked. "So now you'll protect her over evidence?" Amara stood calmly. "I didn't take anything," she said. Julian raised his hand. "Full investigation. Now." Hours later, the truth surfaced. The bracelet was found in Vanessa's hotel suite. Silence. Vanessa was exposed. The board reconvened. Julian spoke firmly. "I will not compromise integrity to protect appearances." Some investors left. Others stayed. But the staff stood taller than ever. That night, Mrs. Thompson hugged Amara. "You gave us dignity," she whispered. Amara smiled softly. "You already had it." Weeks passed. The mansion transformed, not just in atmosphere, but in purpose. Julian introduced fair wages, open communication, respect. He asked Amara to help oversee staff welfare. She hesitated. "I'm still just a maid." Julian shook his head. "Titles don't define impact." She accepted. Vanessa watched everything fall apart. Invitations stopped coming. Friends stopped calling. For the first time, she was alone, with herself. She stared into the mirror, stripped of power. And she hated the reflection. One quiet evening, Julian and Amara sat in the garden. No guards. No tension. Just calm. "You changed my life," Julian said. Amara shook her head. "You chose growth." He smiled. "Maybe I needed courage to see." They sat in silence. Something gentle bloomed. Not rushed. Not dramatic. Just respect growing into something deeper. Vanessa finally left the city. No farewell. No apology. Just consequences. Julian watched her car disappear from the gate. He exhaled. Months later, the mansion was filled with warmth. Laughter echoed. Music played. And Amara, now respected, empowered, stood not above anyone, but beside them. Julian looked around and smiled. He had learned something priceless. A beautiful heart builds a lasting home. Years later, Julian would say this in an interview. "I almost married beauty without character. But I learned, too late and just in time, that power without kindness is poverty." And somewhere in the background of his life stood a woman who refused to bow to cruelty. A maid who changed everything.